Carlos Rodón, now former San Francisco Giant, who is a New York Yankee and certainly kowtowing to his particular fan base. Now that's fine. I'm sure this played well there. I'm sure they didn't even notice because in New York, they think this is just normal and a birthright. Of course they're better fans than everyone else. They're in New York. That's the way it works. So Rodón says, quote, Giants fans are invested, but not like in New York. Win or lose, you're not going to get booed in San Francisco. All right. There's nothing but facts in there. However, there's also an opinion. The fact in there is, you're probably not going to get booed in San Francisco. Although, I could also retort and say, Carlos, why would we have booed you? You were an all-star, and you were incredible. Why would we boo you? That would be like what the Yankee fans did to Aaron Judge, for instance, which is stupid by definition. But secondarily, here's my issue with the statement. It's not that there's a factually incorrect portion. It's that there's an opinion here that we got to get over. This idea that when you boo, that equals you're invested. In other words, you're a good fan if you act like a moron. You're a good fan if you, like what Bonte and Joe experienced in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, if we throw hot dogs at you and racial insults, we're good fans because we care more. But out there on the West Coast, where people aren't as angry and people do go to the game, and if their team loses, they're bummed, but they just go get a beer and a meal afterwards instead of letting it ruin their entire week and spit anger at everybody, that clearly means they are a lesser brand of fan. Investment is not what equals booing. Booing does not equal investment. Throwing things and screaming on sports talk radio does not equal investment. It equals anger issues. It equals moronic, drunk behavior most of the time. I'm not telling you can't boo. If it's your ticket, if you want to boo and you've got a good reason, boo. But it does not equal good fan. That's my rant. Because the fans here care. They care big time. We had a basketball arena that was nicknamed Roracle because it was loud. We had an arena at Oracle Park from 2010 to 2014 that was as loud as any baseball environment that I've ever seen in my life. And we have a football fan base that literally won a freaking award from Vivid Seats because they were the, data now, factually, best traveling fan base in all of the NFL this year. And you're going to tell us we're not invested? You got to get the bleep out of here.
Boy, I'll give you my dib. A lot to unpack here. I do believe, how about this? Will you give me a fan who boos? It means they're passionate.
Sure.
Okay. So,
yes, there are lots of kinds of passion. But
so what about if passion in one area is displayed differently than passion in another area? In other words, in Philly or New York, their passion when they're disappointed is booing. The Giants fans, their passion is a little disengagement, maybe, from the product, or losing a little bit of passion because you're seeing it's not there. You know what I mean?
Like it's not worth my time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sure. I mean, I get that, and we know what is sort of like the basis behind that, which is on the West Coast, we have more options of things to do. Like, that's cultural. It's cultural. What bothers me is when West Coast fans get called soft.
Gotcha.
Or that they don't care. Which, like, I could give you, as I already gave you some, we could give evidence all the way from here to the end of the show about how West Coast fans care. Big time.
Okay. So here's my thing with, you cannot tell me when the Giants from 10 to 15, 10 to 16, like, you can't tell me their fans were any less passionate than the best fans in the league. In fact, here's how you know they were great fans, because they're starting to get annoying as far as I was concerned. And you know what? Ditto with the Warriors in a little
for
way.
Sure, yes.
But let's talk about the Warriors. Well, don't they have the best fans of all time because the fans came out when the team stunk for 12 years at Oracle Arena for the most part. So I think another test is, well, what kind of fan are you when the team loses? Do you boo? Do you continue to go and be supportive? Or do you say, I'm not watching this anymore? Because to me, I would rather have a Warrior fan than a Yankee fan, but I'm talking about a Warrior fan from when they weren't losing. What happens when the Yankees lose? Does anybody even care?
I mean, I think
or do they boo?
Why don't we actually go to the team that does lose all the time in that market, which is the Knicks?
Okay.
Now, I actually think from those I know who live in New York, it's actually a basketball town, much more than it is a baseball town. But the reason the Yankees get all the attention is because they win and the Knicks don't. But true or false, if the Knicks won a championship, the outpouring in the streets would be much bigger than if the Yankees won a World Series.
Is that because the Knicks haven't won as much as the Yankees?
Maybe, but it's also, I think that's probably part of the dynamic. I also just think that New York is a basketball town. New York's got an unbelievable basketball history, right? I mean, like even on the streets, like it's a basketball town. Yes, there are good baseball fans. It's New York. There's plenty of room for all kinds of fans. There's 2 hockey teams there for crying out loud. But I do think that basketball is at the core of the city's passion.
Okay. Have you ever booed a player? That you can remember off the top of your head.
On my team? No.
Yeah. Giant, Warrior.
No. I booed Tommy Lasorda until I was out of a voice.
Okay, let me ask you this. It's going to be hard to envision, but let's say Ben Simmons would have been a Warrior. Could you have seen yourself booing Ben Simmons?
No, I would have responded to that. I would have shown my displeasure in a different way.
How?
Again, disengagement.
Okay.
Lack of support. But there's 2 things about it. Again, I don't think it's really in my DNA. That's not how I like to fan. That's not how I want to go to a game. I want just one of the reasons I love Steph Curry so much. I'd rather watch the game with joy than with anger. That's the way that I go about it. And then disengagement as far as an individual is tough because I'm not going to let one individual mean I'm now not a fan of that specific team. But the lack of support for something going on with any particular team is going to come in a different form. I don't think – I was also affected by the Donnie Moore story years ago.
Why don't you tell it
for those who don't know, Donnie Moore was a pitcher with the Angels years and years ago and went through some very deep struggles and some mental health problems. And it's odd that this happened with the Angels because here we are talking about a Southern California West Coast team. But he got booed. He got booed a lot, and it ended up being a key piece in him taking his own life. And I remember hearing that story as a young sports fan, and I was like, I kind of made a rule. I'm not participating in that. I'm just not going to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then
for sure.
For me, I like that you bring up Ben Simmons because that is something that's on the table with regard to why someone would show displeasure. Lack of effort. Or continued, repeated, poor play or poor behavior, I think is worthy of a boo. If somebody is having an off night, like Rodón, don't boo. I'm going to boo you. You're 16-5. Like if you're off on one night, why would I boo you? That doesn't make any sense.
Agree. I agree.
So, yeah.
Okay, so here's a couple of my thoughts is – and I could see why you might push back against this because what if, Aaron Judge was getting booed last year. Yeah, Mike Schmidt got booed in Philly.
Yep.
I do think there's a chance that even though we talk about, can you believe the hometown booed him, that there may be athletes that it's kind of attractive to because it does guarantee, it's really hard. Once Mike Schmidt won him over, it was over. For the positive. So I'm wondering if Judge, I don't know if the words get off on, but it's just I don't know if it's in his mind or not, but we thought more of him getting booed at his home stadium than he did because he gets that part of New York and doesn't let it really kill him or his personality, and it almost becomes a badge of honor to be playing in front of fans that.
And they brought up Joey Gallo, for instance, who was not somebody who could handle that. So I'm sure you're right that, like, yeah, some athletes do better with it. And even to this point, how many times do we hear athletes? This was funny. I guess one of the Chiefs players last week was like, man, we won the Super Bowl when y'all predicted we weren't even going to win the division. And we're like, what? Who the hell predicted? So athletes make up stuff in their head.
No doubt.
With regard to we've been slighted or you're against us. So, yeah, probably some of them do respond to the boo because they use it as like an inner motivation. Other athletes don't like it. And so, again, just to circle back, though, like, I don't have an issue with your booing. I just have an issue with us defining that booing as that means you care, and if you don't boo, then you don't care. That's what I have an issue with.
I'm with you there. But I look at the did Brandon Belt ever get booed the millionth time that he looked at a called third strike?
Like not in any
like
sort
maybe
of
on the way to the dugout.
Way. Yeah, not in a significant.
What about Hunter Strickland? I was trying to throw names.
God, I mean, it's
now when you talk about booing, let me tell you who booing did affect. Mike Dunleavy Jr. for the Warriors back in the day. It was just energy sapping for him.
Has he told you this?
No, but it was obvious.
Okay.
And when he got traded initially, I think he went to Indiana. He said it's great to be in a city that really knows basketball, that kind of thing.
That stuff.
And then he got booed, obviously, on the way back.
And then he ended up back here.
But I look at it now. Why was Dunleavy booed? Okay, well, he's a third pick. Okay,
expectations are attached.
But it was all about the perception that he was aloof, above it all, and wasn't really busting his hump. And I know I'm getting off track a little bit.
You're all right.
But you know who was cheered? Troy Murphy. Okay. Oh, Troy Murphy's a gamer. He's tough. Guess what? I got news for you. It was actually the opposite of that. I thought Troy Murphy was actually very selfish, and I thought Dunleavy was a complete and utter professional. He just grew up in the game, so he was very kind of passive about it. He knew from the minute he was 11, he was playing in the NBA. And so he figured out it was a business at 23 years old, and he was a little cynical, and he had, he just seemed like he was more important than the game.
This is interesting.
But I never thought Dunleavy should get booed. So why did Dunleavy get booed?
The Bay Area does not boo often, but when you go through the history of who they've booed, it's never been solely because of poor play.
Correct.
It's because of something we don't like about the way you go about your business.
No doubt.
Think about it. A.J. Pierzynski. Part of it is you didn't play that well, but it's because we thought you were a snot-nosed punk, right? You just talked about Dunleavy. I remember being at the Giants game. I think the day or the week after Deion Sanders left the 49ers for the Cowboys and he was still on the San Francisco Giants, he got booed. Why? Because you're a Cowboy. And we didn't like your decision. It wasn't because you were hitting 220. It was because of your decision. It was the way, like if Aubrey Huff were to come out and doff a cap at Oracle, he would get booed.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with, he was a World Series hero, but we don't like the human being now.
Exactly.